Hi, everybody. It's a couple of minutes to 3 o'clock here, so we're just going to wait for a couple of minutes just in case anybody else is going to join us again. Not worried about how many people are here because I'll be making all of this available on my Patreon page. Lots of people have commitments during the daytime, depending on what part of the country you're in. It could be, just before dinner or just before you get off work. So I understand that. I'm not worried, again, about how many people are here. But yeah, so we'll just give it a couple of minutes. I tried playing music here the other day before, but Google shut it down because they said that I was playing copyrighted stuff. So let me know here where you are from and where you live. Just a couple more minutes here. I'll just maybe in the tradition of kind of telling a little bit about myself. So for some of you who've been joining me for these live broadcasts, you probably know that I spent 10 years, almost 11 years living abroad. 5 years in South Korea, 5 years in Japan, and I spent about a half a year in India developing an English language program for monks in a monastery in a remote part of India in Himachal Pradesh. One other thing is that I have kind of invented a new way of learning a language. So if any of you are interested, please send me a message. But it's called project-based language learning. It combines interests that people might have in their regular everyday life and turns it into well, it just turns everything into a project. So basically what you do is you come up with an idea for something that you would like to accomplish or something you'd like to do. And then basically what I do is that I put English language learning into your project to make sure that you can do all the things that you need to do in your project and do it all in English. So I see here now it is 3 o'clock. So again, I'm just going to give it a couple more minutes just in case there are people that are going to be joining us live. One of the things that I have found in my own language learning journey while I was in Korea, I had to learn the Korean language. We were there for 5 years, and of course, being a place for 5 years, you really want to be able to, you want to make friends, you want to be able to do things, and so. But I was teaching English there, and it was my first time teaching English, and so I was just doing what the school told me. So I went out and looked around the little town of Icheon, Gyeonggi-do in South Korea, and I found a tutor who would help me, and it was kind of interesting because for her, she had tutored some Korean before, but she basically was teaching Korean the same way that I was teaching English to all these young people. And what I noticed was that after a couple of months of actually studying Korean with this, and she was a very, very nice lady. But I found that after a couple of months, I still couldn't really speak any Korean. Like I couldn't go out and talk or buy anything or do anything. And so I was a little bit frustrated. And it was about that time that I met a woman named Kim Kyung-hui. She is a tea master in the little town of Icheon, Gyeonggi-do, where we lived. And I found that the Korean tea ceremony, the daily ceremony, was very relaxing, and Korea is a very busy place. So for me, this seemed like a good way for me to be able to chill out and enjoy Korea. So I tried to take lessons from this lady. She didn't speak any English, and of course, I didn't really speak any Korean, so she didn't think it was possible. But I bugged her for a while. She ended up taking me on as a student. I think that she thought that I would probably give up, but I didn't. I stuck with it, and I ended up staying in Korea actually for an extra few years so that I could complete my studies and to become a tea teacher myself. But one of the things I noticed was that in my tea lessons, I was listening to her a lot, and I was just basically mimicking. Now, mimicking means you're kind of looking at what someone else is doing, and then you try to do the same thing. And so that's what that's what I found I was doing. And after maybe 4 or 5 weeks of taking these tea lessons, I finally realized that, oh my goodness, I'm actually speaking Korean. And so this gave me the idea that if you really want to learn a language fast, one of the things you should do is try to do things in your daily life that you kind of need to do in that language. And if you do that, you will find a way, your brain will find a way to help you learn that language. That's how people originally learn languages, right? There were no such thing as language schools when the Silk Road was going through Asia and the Middle East. So these folks had to learn English a different way, and they learned by doing. That's what I do with my students. I hope, I hope that they do the things that I'm asking them to do. They say they do them, but that's what I help. That's how I help people with CELPIP. I give them. We have 2-hour classes, and then in between classes, they have a whole bunch of work or things that they have to do. A lot of them revolve around real life situations. So yeah. So there you go. That's a little bit more about me. Thank you for your patience. If you're watching this on recording, you could have just skipped ahead, but hopefully you stopped and listened to what I was telling you, and hopefully you understood. If you didn't understand, or if you have questions, I'll type my email address in the chat. And even if you're watching this on a replay, you should be able to see the chat. So today, what we're going to do, thanks again for joining me, everybody. I'd like to remind you that this is a part of my Master the CELPIP series for my Patreon page. These recordings will only be available there. Now, the first, so for example, listening part 1, reading part 1, speaking part 1, and writing part 1 will all be available for anybody who just joins the free part of my Patreon page. But if you'd like to get access to everything, please subscribe to one of the paid tiers, and that will give you access to the recordings as well as some extras that you can see on the Patreon page. So let's get right into what we're going to do today. First of all, we're going to, first of all, I'd like to apologize. My last recording, I did reading part 2. I should have actually done reading part 1, but I got a little, there's a little bit of a mix up on my schedule. So today we're going to look at part 2 of the test. So let me just share my screen here. Okay, so reading part 1 is reading correspondence. So what you're going to have here is you're going to have typically two people that are familiar with each other or are somehow know each other, and you're going to be reading what is most likely an email, um, and that's going to appear on the left side. Remember, if you see the scroll bar, the bar on the side, that means that there's more to read, so don't forget to scroll down. And what I would like to, for the next 2 or 3 videos, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can use the same strategy parts, um, reading parts 1, 3, and 4. You'll be using a kind of a similar style of or a similar approach to the reading in this part. So what we're going to do, first of all, um, some people like to look over at the questions. I find in this section it's not always that helpful, because you can get too caught up into looking and going through all this stuff, and it takes up too much time. So what I would suggest, and this depends on your reading speed. If you find that you have a slow reading speed, then what you're going to do is you're going to read the first couple, or you're going to read the first sentence and the last sentence of each paragraph. Now, of course, up here you see it says, "Thank you so much." Obviously, that's just a greeting. So read the next sentence. And as you read the first sentence, for example, "I was surprised and delighted to receive your parcel and open your thoughtful present." So obviously someone's kind of sending a message or a letter in response to receiving a present. So maybe it was their birthday or something. But so then you're going to go down and you're going to read this. The second thing you're going to read is the last sentence. Now, as you go from this sentence down to this sentence, what you should do is don't read everything that's here, but just kind of notice any significant words. Okay. Um, so you see here, used it, so that means they've used it already. A week camping, Kootenay region. Okay, so you don't have to know everything, you don't have to understand completely what's in the middle, but just let your eyes kind of see what's there in general, but don't necessarily read. Hopefully that will make sense to you. That's what we do in our native languages, is we tend to just kind of skim a lot of things. So this is called skimming. Okay, and then you're going to do that for each of the 4 paragraphs here. Okay. Now, when I'm coaching my students, sometimes when I find out that the reading speed is a little faster, what I'll get them to do is I'll get them to read the first couple of sentences in the paragraph and the last sentence in the paragraph. Usually within the first 2 sentences of the paragraph, you get the main idea or the topic of the paragraph. If you are a fast reader, then you can do that, and also you can make a note, just like maybe 1 or 2 words that remind you of what you saw or what the general idea was in each of these paragraphs. So this one here is just thanking somebody for a present and letting them know that yeah, so just letting like, this is just an introduction and saying thank you for the gift, right? And letting the person know that that they've used it already. The second one, we planned on camping at various locations in the Kootenay region. The Kootenay region, that's an area of British Columbia, Canada, mountain region, very famous here. But we ended up staying at our first campsite for the whole trip. So they changed their plans, right? Second sentence, the campground located on the east side of Arrow Lake was called McDonald Creek Provincial Park. So that's giving you some little extra information that's probably not very helpful for the answers because it's very specific. So then we're going to look just kind of sneak past this sentence in here, right? Looking forward to White Sand Beach, recent rainfall, lake flood, a couple meters higher. The beach was completely submerged. We still had a great time, though, hiking in the beautiful wilderness. So, you know here that they didn't do what they intended, but they still had a really good time. We drove a different route to get home so we could pass to the city of Nelson. It looks different from the last time I was there, but that's not too surprising. I was just there a couple times as a kid. Then you kind of flick through and you see Dad show me the house, your old clothing store, couldn't find house, found old store, cafe now, old sign. I got pretty emotional when I saw it. I felt really proud of our family history. So this is a little bit about this, the route on the way home, and it looks like they saw somebody's old home, like the father's hometown or someone's hometown, and the grandfather, it looks like, used to have a store there. Then the last paragraph. Now I'm back in Calgary, but the trip to Nelson made me realize how much I miss you. So I was thinking that maybe I should fly over to visit you. Okay, so now in the last paragraph, you know that the person who's writing is going to go visit their grandfather. Okay, uh, then you're going to go down to the last sentence. But on the way, 2 weeks before college start, I have enough money from summer job to Montreal. So it looks like his grandfather lives in Montreal. How does that sound? Asking his grandfather. Perhaps two of us can go camping like in the old days. So they used to go camping together. We haven't done that since you moved east. I'll bring the new tent. Okay. So that's kind of basically what you would do in order to be able to get as much as you can from the reading. Now, you're only going to spend about a minute or so doing this. Okay. If I just refresh here, so as you can see, you've got 11 minutes. Okay, so you've got a minute or a minute and a half to just kind of look through this very quickly. Then when you get over here, you've got 11 questions or 11 fill in the blanks that you have to do. So let's go over and take a look at them. So number one, Greg. Again, remember, if you've seen in other videos I've done, one of the first things you want to make sure that you do is eliminate or get rid of or say no to things that we don't know for sure or that are obviously not the answer, right? So we're looking for a fact about Greg. Okay, Greg got used to his old family tent. Not really sure. That was that would have been in paragraph 1. Greg got a new tent in the mail. Well, we know that he got a new tent in the mail, so that's definitely sounds like the answer. Needs a new tent for his trip. No, he's writing because he got a new tent in the mail. Bought a new tent? No, he didn't buy a new tent. He got a new tent in the mail. Okay, so it appears that got a new tent in the mail is going to be our answer because the other 3 are not suitable. Number 2, Greg and Ryan. This is Greg's friend Ryan, who went camping with him in the Kootenays. Greg and Ryan toured several campsites in the Kootenay region. Well, actually, no, they didn't. It says we planned on camping at various locations in the Kootenay region, but we ended up staying at our first campsite for the whole trip. So they didn't tour several campsites. Enjoyed the provincial parks, white sand beaches. White sand beaches. Let's see. We were looking forward to the white sand beach, but when we arrived, the park ranger informed us. So it was the beach was completely submerged. So there was no beach. So that one's out. We're surprised by the water level of the lake. So there was a flood. So that means that the water was high. So that's probably the answer. We're surprised by the water level at the lake. But let's take a look at the last one just in case. Greg and Ryan were unable to tour and camp because of the rainfall. No, they did. They stayed at a campsite for the whole trip. So we know that they actually did go camping. I'm not sure too much about the touring, but they did seem to do a little bit of tour of Nelson on the way back. So it looks like we're surprised by the water level of the lake is going to be our answer there. Number 3. Greg took an alternative way back. So alternative way back, we drove a different different, right? So we drove an alternative route to get home so that we could pass through the city of Nelson. Why was Nelson significant? Let's see here. Uh, he wanted to revisit his dad's hometown. Um, so this does appear to be his dad's hometown. It says here, Dad showed me the house where he had been born. So this is his dad's hometown. So it looks like the first one is probably the answer, but let's just make sure. His grandpa still owns a shop there? No. Your old shop, right? I didn't find your old store, so that means it's not his anymore, or he doesn't own it anyway. So that's not the answer. He wanted to pay his father a visit. I'm I'm sure that he probably would like to pay his father a visit, but in general, this is probably a better answer. He wanted to revisit it, so this is possibly an answer too. He used to live there as a child. Um, so he visited as a child. He didn't used to live there. Okay, so this is not the answer. So we've got to choose between he wanted to pay his father a visit and he wanted to revisit his dad's hometown. Um, when we look at this here, it says, oh, last time we were here, Dad showed me. So Dad isn't with him this time. Okay, so it doesn't appear that this is his dad's hometown. That his dad lives there right now. So he wanted to pay his father a visit. Isn't the case. It's going to be he wanted to revisit his dad's hometown. Okay. If you're here and watching, just write if there's something you don't understand or you'd like me to repeat. So it looks like it's just me here. So I'm just going to continue on. So number 4, Greg became emotional. Emotional, we saw the word emotional over. Oh, I got pretty emotional when I saw it. It refers back to something in the last sentence. What is the subject of the last sentence? It's a cafe now, but they kept your old shop sign. So the old shop sign as a decoration in the cafe, that's what it refers to. So he got pretty emotional when he saw your old shop sign. Okay. And he says, I felt really proud of our family history. So Greg became emotional when he found out his grandpa's business had shut down. No, he knew his grandpa's shop was closed. His grandpa doesn't live there anymore. His father told him stories about his childhood. His father is not there, so that's not the case. He saw the house where his father grew up. He did see the house where his father grew up, but he doesn't talk about being emotional until he talks about seeing the old sign. So then the last one says he saw something that belonged to his grandfather, which was the old shop sign. So these 3 are out. So this one is going to be the answer. And when we look over here, this is what we see right here. I got pretty emotional when I saw it. It refers back to your old sign. Okay. Number 5, Greg is hoping to. So Greg is hoping. So that's talking about the future. So that's probably down here in the last paragraph. Okay, so what is he hoping to do? It sounds like he's hoping to travel to Montreal to see his grandfather. So let's see if that's here in the answer. So Greg is hoping to use the tent for the first time. No, he's already used it for a trip with his friend Ryan. Travel to Montreal soon. Well, that's what he's talking about here. He's talking about buying a ticket to Montreal. Okay. So that's probably the answer. Greg is hoping to be accepted in college this year. He already is in college, so he's not obviously thinking about being accepted. He says, I have 2 weeks before college starts, so he's already been accepted. So he's not hoping about that. He is hoping to get a summer job before starting school. He says that he already has a summer job. He saved up money for the ticket to Montreal. So these three here are not the answers. So we were right. Travel to Montreal very soon is the correct answer. And then number 6, Greg's grandpa. Greg's grandpa. What about Greg's grandpa? Is Greg's grandpa coming to Calgary for a few weeks? Nope, there's no talk of him going to Calgary anytime soon. We're talking about Greg going to Montreal. Greg's grandpa bought Greg a ticket back to Nelson. There's no reason, there's nothing about him going back to Nelson. Nelson was mentioned as a part of his trip. So that's not the right answer. Used to go camping with Greg. Do we know anything about them going camping? Let's see over here, camping. Perhaps the two of us can go camping like in the old days. So that's actually a true statement. Greg's grandpa used to go camping with Greg, right? Like in the old days. In the old days refers to time before now. So he and his grandpa used to go camping. So this is probably the answer, but let's make sure. Greg's grandpa is moving back to Calgary. There's no talk of anybody moving back to Calgary. This is where Greg lives, and Greg's only thinking about going to visit his grandpa. So the only true statement here is that Greg's grandpa used to go camping with Greg. At the bottom part of this, coffee break. Gotta have coffee. So the second part of reading part one is a response to the original email or the original correspondence. Okay, so we see here, this is a response from Grandpa to Greg. And in this section, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to understand the general idea of what has been said over here, right? Hopefully, when you do the test and you get this, you were able to get the right answers up here. And so down here, you're going to have to infer a little bit of information. Infer, again, means to read between the lines or to kind of give an educated guess about something. Okay? So here we see Greg. It goes without saying. And as we, well, one of the things that I teach my students to do is don't just read up to the blank space and try to get the answer there. Also read what comes after that. So read the next sentence too, just to make sure. Okay, so it goes without saying that I'd love to blank. Now with my old bones, I'm not so sure that blank, but even if it's not, I think we should do it anyway. So they're talking about some sort of activity that is maybe not something that old people really want to do a lot of, but it seems that this is very meaningful. So he says, even if it's not, I think we should do it anyway. So I'm not so sure that, so it sounds like I'm not so sure that we should do it, but even if it's not, I think we should do it anyway. So let's take a look. It goes without saying that I'd love to. Now let's go through them to see what makes sense. Visit Montreal. Well, he already lives in Montreal, so that makes sense. Doesn't make sense. Visit the Kootenays. There's no, like, this is a reference to something that was said over here. It goes without saying that I'd love to do something. So what did Greg say over here? He says, perhaps the two of us can go camping like in the old days. So maybe they're talking about maybe they're talking about camping. I'm not sure. But he also says, how does that sound? So I'd have enough money saved up from my summer. I have enough money saved up from my summer job for a ticket to Montreal. How does that sound? So he asks the question. So Grandpa's going to start off by answering the question, and he's going to say, it goes without saying that I'd love to not visit Montreal. He lives there. Not visit Kootenays, because that's not what his grandson was talking about. Go to Calgary. There's no mention of him going to Calgary. But there is mention of seeing you here. So he says, all right, so I have enough money saved up for my summer job to pay for the ticket to Montreal. How does that sound? Do you think I should go to Montreal, Grandpa? And his grandpa says, imagine your grandpa, right? He'd probably say, yes, I'd love to see you here, right? Then he says, now with my old bones, I'm not so sure that blank, but even if it's not, I think we should do it anyway. So this is an activity. So now with my old bones, I'm not sure that flying here is wise. Well, that makes no sense. Grandpa's not going to be flying. I can make it to Calgary. Grandpa's not talking about going to Calgary. Uh, we should visit the old cafe. He's not talking about visiting the old cafe, right? There's no mention of that over here. And then the last one, camping is a great idea. Now with my old bones, so think about it. You're an old person and your grandchild wants you to go camping. Well, maybe camping is a little bit more difficult than it used to be when you were a kid. Um, but he says, even if it's not, I think we should do it anyway. Okay, so we've eliminated the first three. So camping is a great idea. This is going to be the answer. So I'm not so sure that camping is a great idea, but even if it's not, I think we should do it anyway. And then we're going to read all the rest of this before we try to answer number 9. After all, we have to put the tent to good use. You just email me your travel plans. Also, there's no need to blank. I can take care of that. You should keep your savings for tuition. So um, we know that this here probably has something to do with money because he says you should keep your savings. So if we go back over here, what did he talk about? Saved up enough money to pay for the ticket. Okay, so maybe he's talking about the money for the ticket to Montreal. Also, there's no need to plan a camping trip for us. Well, he just said camping is a great idea. Spend your own money on a ticket. Well, that's talking about money and it's talking about the tickets. That's probably a good choice for the answer. Buy a new tent for this trip. Well, they don't need a new tent. Grandpa sent him a new tent. Drive all the way to Montreal. We're not talking, he's buying a ticket, so he's not driving. He's going on some sort of transportation, so a train or a flight, plane. So the only really suitable answer is spend your own money on a ticket. I can take care of that. Imagine you telling your grandfather you're going to visit. They would probably try to offer at least to pay for part of it. And then down here for number 10 and 11, okay? So again, we're going to read everything, everything before and just after the potential answer. So Grandpa says, "Well, I can't say that I can't say I've been to Nelson since I sold my business there many years ago. Did you take any photos of blank? If you did, I'd love to see them." So there's a couple of possibilities here. So he was looking at the old store, right? And so he might be saying, "Well, did you take any pictures of the old store?" Right? Or he could be even talking about the old shop sign. Okay, so let's just see. Did you take any photos of the old store sign? See, that could be the old cafe. Well, his grandfather didn't have a cafe. It's changed to a cafe. So his grandpa had an old store. You see right here, but it's now a cafe. So it's not the old cafe. If you say the old cafe, that means something that you used to. There was some connection between you a long time before this with this particular cafe. Um, did you take any pictures of your father at the cafe? His father wasn't involved in any of this, so he wasn't there. The house where your dad was born, well, it couldn't find the old house. So that's not the answer. That's not the answer. And this is not the answer. So as we said, it's probably the old store sign. And then the last one, I'm sorry, you blank. I don't even know if it's still standing. If it is, it would be 100 years old. So I don't know if it's still standing. So that's probably some sort of building. If it is, it would be 100 years old. So what buildings do we see over here? So we're talking about the old clothing store. Dad showed me the old house. So there's the house where his dad was born. He's already asked about the store sign, so it might be about the house. But he says, "I'm sorry, you." And so when you apologize at the beginning of a sentence, you're saying, you're kind of you're not really sorry. You didn't do anything to be sorry about, but you're sorry for a situation that didn't turn out the way that the person wanted it to. So what's that over here? It's probably talking about the house. Um, right? So I drove around and I couldn't find your old house, Grandpa, right? So I'm sorry you, right, didn't find the old house. So there you go. So it's probably the answer. Didn't find the old store. He did find the old store. It's now a cafe. Didn't recognize the cafe. Well, the cafe was something he didn't recognize it. He wasn't when you recognize something, it means that you have seen it or you know it from before, and you're seeing it again and you're saying, ah, yeah, I know that. So this cafe is new. It's not something he's seen before, so he didn't recognize the cafe. Um, couldn't buy the old sign. There's no talk about buying the old sign. So we know that it's not this one, not this one, not this one. So it's going to be the first one. Didn't find the old house. Okay. So that's part one, and let's just check to see that I didn't make any mistakes. There you go. So no mistakes there. Um, so I hope that this was helpful for you. Just remember that. Let's just go back here. Just remember a couple of things. Don't forget, read, take a look at everything that's on the left side. So make sure that if you see this scroll bar that you scroll down to see what's there. Make sure you answer all the questions. So again, scroll bar over here, scroll down to make sure you don't miss anything. Make sure you pay attention to the time. You have 11 minutes to do this. With 1 minute left, you should be able to check over any answers that you weren't sure about. And don't click next until you're absolutely sure that you're finished. If you click next, you can't go back and to the last screen. Okay. So, and one more tip that I didn't mention while we were doing this. If you get to one of these and it's taking you a long time to think about it, move on to the next. Don't sit for longer than 10 or 15 or 20 seconds. If you can't figure out the answer within 15 or 20 seconds, then move on to the next one. Just okay. Try to do the ones that you find a little bit easier first, and then go back and try to finish up the ones that were a little bit tougher. Okay. So there we go. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. But for the last thing, I'd just like to remind you folks that I do have a Patreon page. And I'm going to put the link to my Patreon page in the chat. I think that it's a really good deal. For about $35 a month, you can have access to all these videos, and more videos will be coming live. For the top tier, you will actually get lots of live stuff. Okay. So if you look at just for $9, let me share this. I'm going to share this so that you can see this. So here are the membership tiers. For $9 a month, you get one 90-minute live stream test practice per week, plus access to video tips. There'll be one new video tip per week, and a whole bunch of videos that I've put together that will help you practice for listening and different reading and different aspects of the CELPIP test. And I'll be adding more stuff each week. If you pay, so that's this one is about. So these are what you see here is the American cost. That's about $13, right? About $12 or $13 a month. This one is $23, $24 a month, and with this one, you get two 90-minute live streams each week. And plus the video tips that I put out each week, as well as access to PDF materials that I make or I have that I share. So you'll see all the posts will be completely available to you, video tutorials and lessons. There will also be a live chat that you'll be able to participate in that have live Q&As. So that's for about $23 or $24 a month. And then down here for Defeat the CELPIP, which is the top tier, that's $25 American, so about $31, $32 Canadian a month. And that gives you 3 90-minute live streams, test practices each week, which you also will have access to afterwards, the recordings. Plus, you'll have access to video tips. So there'll be 3 new video tips that you'll get per week at this level. Again, the best CELPIP video help available from other sources on the web, PDF materials, and a live 2-hour Q&A session every week. Plus, I think I mentioned you'll have access to all recorded sessions. You'll also receive feedback on either a speaking task or a writing task twice a month. So a lot of value here. I hope that you will visit my Patreon page and help support me. I really appreciate it. Yeah, so you have my email. You have a link to my Patreon page. So anything that I can help you out with, please send me an email or join Patreon and participate in live sessions. So thank you very much. I forgot to wish everybody a happy Valentine's Day. And I hope that you get time to spend it with people that you love and people that you care about today. I will see you on our next chat, which is going to be Saturday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So that's going to be 2 o'clock in Alberta, 3 o'clock in Saskatchewan, and then you're getting into 4 o'clock and after farther east you go. So again, that's 1 o'clock my time. And this is going to be a longer session of 2 hours. So hopefully you'll be able to join us then. Thank you very much. And you can check my CELPIP, my Facebook CELPIP page as well for links to the live sessions. Thank you very much. Peace, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.